Hi there and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to set up an Ubuntu 20.04 LTS server, and then we're going to install Cyberpanel. So we're going to use Vultr for this. You can choose any of these servers, and I'm going to show you how to deploy a server on Vultr. And then we're going to deploy Ubuntu 20.04 server on our Vultr VPS. Finally, I'm going to install Cyberpanel. Okay, so if that's something that you want to do, go ahead and watch the video. So the post that I will be using is on my website, and I have made the work easy for you. All you have to do is you come here on the website and you can search for Ubuntu. So this is a post I'm going to use, and I will leave the link in the description below. If I forget to add it, just remind me and I will add it there for you. Alright, so I will use this to set up my Ubuntu server, and you can use this to set up Ubuntu 2010 or Ubuntu 20.04. Either is going to work with that. But of course, you're going to install the LTS version, as you should always do. If you are using Ubuntu, always just use the long-term supported versions. After setting up the server, we're going to use Cyberpanel. And one question that people usually have about Cyberpanel is Cyberpanel free? Now, there are two versions of Cyberpanel. You'll have the enterprise version of Cyberpanel, which uses Lightspeed Enterprise, and then you have the free version that uses Open Lightspeed. Now, this is the one we are going to install, and with this, you can run as many websites as you want to. If you come here under pricing, you're probably going to see that this version has like a limit of 1 or 2 websites. I don't know how many, you can just check there, but this is not the one we're going to install, so this doesn't apply to you. We're going to install the free version, which comes with Open Lightspeed, and with this version you can have as many websites as you want to on your server. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know a lot of people usually have that question before they start using Cyberpanel. So the first step, we're going to deploy a server. So if you want to deploy a new server and you don't have a Vultr account, just go ahead and you can use my link in the description, which is going to give you $100 credit in your account. If you start using the platform, you activate your billing method and all, you'll get $100 credit in your account, which you can use for a period of time on your account. So just go ahead and use the link, and I hope it will be available by the time you're watching this video, because they're saying that the offer is for a limited time. So let's just get started by deploying our server. And if I come here under products, you're going to see that I don't have any server yet, but I can click there to deploy an instance, or click there to deploy a new server. Either is going to work. And I'm going to come here under deploy, under this plus, and I'll just click on it. And when I click on it, I can choose the server type. So these are the VPS options. This is 20% more expensive than this, and they say that it's slightly faster than this. So you can choose this or this, but if you want to try out Vultr, just start with that, okay? And then you can choose the location. For you to choose a location, just choose a location where your visitors are, or where most of your visitors are. And for me, I'm just going to choose Europe. I can choose Frankfurt or London. Let me choose Frankfurt for this. And I'm going to choose Ubuntu. And I'll click there to select a version, and we want to select 20.04. This is the LTS version. So make sure you install 20.04. This may seem like they're higher versions, but don't install them. Install 20.04 because this is the LTS version, which will give you long-term support. And that's what you should always want for a server. And that's why people actually use Debian, and people also use CentOS for the same reason. So that's why we're going to choose 20.04, which is an Ubuntu LTS version. So once you choose the Ubuntu version that you want, now you need to choose the server size. Now for the server size, you can go up, but you can't go down on Vultr, okay? So for instance, if I choose a $5 server and I want to upgrade to a $10 server, I can do that in my account, but I cannot go from 10 to 5. Now the one thing that I love with Cyberpanel is that it will work well on this. It will really work well on this because it doesn't use a lot of resources, okay? But that depends on the website that you're running. If you're running a very huge WordPress website, you will probably need to upgrade if you want your website to be much faster than it will be under this plan. So you can start with $5. That's enough to run multiple sites on a Cyberpanel control panel. I can enable IPv6. Now, if you're using this for commercial reasons, maybe you're hosting other people's sites, you should probably enable automatic backups. And what you should know about the pricing for this is that it's 20% of your server pricing. So if mine is $5, 20% of 5 is $1. So let's choose something like $80. You'll see it becomes $16. So that's something that you should know. It is charged at 20% of your server cost. All right, so that's for that. Startup script, if you have this, I don't have any of startup scripts. These are scripts that you can run automatically when the server is being installed. You can also add SSH keys, but of course, I'm going to show you how to set up SSH keys manually, how you can set them up manually, whether you're on Windows, Linux, Mac. I have the tutorial here. And server hostname. So since you're going to run a website on our Cyberpanel, you definitely need a fully qualified domain. A fully qualified domain is a domain that can be accessed. Okay, so this is a domain that you can add. You can add DNS records and it will be accessible. And it can be a domain, it can be a full domain or a subdomain. So you can use something like example.com. You can use just bizanosa.com only without the sample subdomain part, or you can use a subdomain. Okay, for me, I'm going to use a subdomain, and I don't want to use this website for this. Let me use a different website. I don't know which one I can use. Just give me a moment to find a site that I can use. So I'm here on Cloudflare and I've decided to use this. So for the DNS records, I'm going to use Cloudflare when we get there. So that will be another video, probably the next one after this one. So I've decided to use this website as the sample because I don't want to deal with that other website. So I'm going to use that. So as I said, you can give it any subdomain, or you can even use a full domain without the subdomain part. So it's entirely up to you. That's for the host name. Make sure it's a fully qualified domain name. And then for the server label, this is just a label that you can identify on Vultr. You can call it whatever you want to call it. So for me, I can just call it Ubuntu Cyberpanel. And then I will deploy the server. Let me just make sure everything is as I want it. So I want the cloud compute, I want the server in Frankfurt, and I do want Ubuntu 20.04, and I want the $5 monthly server. And then make sure the server hostname has also been set up correctly, and then I'll click on deploy. All right, so our server is installing, and let me just click on it. So currently not active. Just give it time. Just give it a little bit of time, like 2 minutes, and you're going to have a root user, password generated, and the IP address, which you can use to log into your server, and you can use to set up different things. So since I want to make my work a little bit easy, what I can do is I will copy this IP address, copy the IP address from there, and then I'll bring it here, and you can create an A record. So create an A record on your cyber, create an A record on Cloudflare. If you don't have a Cloudflare and you don't know what Cloudflare is and you're watching a video like this, you should probably do a tutorial. You should probably watch a tutorial about that. And another A record for www, and I will add the IP address. So by the time you're watching this tutorial, I will have deleted this server. So maybe if you access it, it will not be accessible. And then MX, I can leave that as it is. So at this point, of course, if I try to access this, it's not going to give me anything because we haven't set up the server yet. So there we go, our server. We have the root user and we have the password. Now, what you're going to do in this video, and this is the important part, before you install Cyberpanel, this is the important part. You need to set up various things on your server. So we've deployed the server. We're going to see how we can log into the server. If you're using Windows, we're going to use Putty. I'm also going to show you how you can log in if you're on Terminal. If you're on Linux or Mac, you can just open up Terminal, and I'm going to show you how you can do that as well. I'm going to show you how you can create a new sudo user, and a sudo user is just an admin user that has root privileges, and this is important because you don't want the root user accessible on your server. For security reasons, we're going to disable the root user once we create a sudo user that you can use to log in. And then you need to set up since you're using Cyberpanel, I'm not going to set up a firewall. I'm going to skip this bit because Cyberpanel is going to set up the rules that we need for the server. And then the next step, you can set up SSH Key authentication, and you're going to do this because this is also very important. So once you do this, we're going to disable the password login so that people cannot log into our server. And this is important because without password authentication, it's a little harder for someone to try to brute force into your server, because if they don't have the key, they will automatically get disconnected via SSH. So we're going to disable the root user and we're going to disable password authentication. And then because we're on a small server, we're going to create a swap file. And for this, I was supposed to install virtual main, but Cyberpanel is a much more popular control panel right now. And that is a much better panel for you if you're a beginner. then you can use that. But if you want to use virtual main, you can also do that. The installation guide is below. First thing, let's see how you can log into your server. So if you're on Windows and you're following along on a Windows computer, you can download Putty and download it from the official website. This is the official Putty website. So I've linked to it there. Don't download it from anywhere else. Download it from this website. This is the official site. And then once you get here, download this version, okay, for your system. This has everything we need, and we're going to need Putty, and we're also going to need PuttyGen. So that's all we're going to need for that. So if you don't have Putty installed, just download it and install it. And then now let's see how we can log in. Here you can find the instructions for how to log in, but I'm going to show you in this video, so you can read or you can just follow along with what I'm going to show you. So if I open up Start, I can just search for Putty, and I will open Putty. And here we need to add our IP address. So let me come back here and I will copy that. And I will add the IP address. So I don't want to add the IP address every time I come into Putty. So I'm going to save this session. And to save a session, just add a name here, and let's call this Cyberpanel. I can click there to save it. And I also want to increase the font on Putty. Let me show you what I mean. If I click here on Cyberpanel, double click on it, and we can accept this because we know that this is a new server. So we can accept this into our host file here on local computer, on our local computer of Windows, because the server is new. But I want to increase the font for this. So I'll come here and I will change settings, and I'll come here under appearance, and I want to change the font, and let me use a font of, let me just use 20. I will say OK, and I'll click here on sessions, and I want to save that. I want to save that so we don't have to do that every time. So I will log in as the user that was given to us on Vultr, and the user is root, and then I'll copy the password. So I will log in as root, enter, and then enter the password. So the password was generated, and on Putty I can just right click to copy, and you won't see the password when you're typing it in. So just press enter. And there we go. We're now logged into our Ubuntu server. All right. So if you're on a Mac or on Linux and you want to log into your server, it's just a similar process. Let me come back here, and I will copy my IP address. So open up terminal. I'm on Windows. I don't have terminal, but I can use git bash to try and demonstrate that. So I have git bash there. If you want to install git bash and use it on Windows, you can do so as well. Just go to, I think it's git SCRM. Just search for git, download git, and you can download it online. And once you install it, it's going to come with all the features that you'll need. And you can use git bash to emulate a Linux terminal environment. So if you want to log into your server, just SSH into the server. We're going to SSH. And then the user that you want to log in as, currently we only have root, at the IP address. And it's asking us to confirm that we want to add this into our host file, and we'll just type yes to confirm. And now we need to add the password for root. Paste, and when you paste it, you won't be able to see it, but you can just enter password, copy, paste, enter, and there we go. That's how you can log into your server. So just open up terminal and you can follow along with me. And if you're using Linux or Mac and you get to this section about setting up SSH keys, you're going to get to this part about setting up SSH keys. On Windows, you're going to use PuttyGen, but you can also set this up on Linux or Mac, and I do have the link under this section. So just scroll down to this section and you'll find the link on my site of how you can do that as well. And when I get there, I'm going to show that link to you. It's in the description. It's on this post. All right, so let's get started here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new user. because we are logged in, and I'm going to follow along with putty now. I don't need that for now. What I need for now is setting up, create a new user. All the commands are here, and we need to add a user, and then we'll make that user. We'll add that user into the sudo group so that they can have admin privileges. So the first thing, of course, is to add a user, and you can give it any name that you want. Add a user. And as I said on putty, you can paste in by right clicking. So avoid right clicking on putty if you don't want to paste anything. So add user, and let's just give it the title user 20. User 21, and then add the user. Give the user a password. Give him a strong password. I can skip all this. Just press enter to skip all of this. There we go. Okay, now the next process, we need to make this user an admin user using the sudo. We need to give them the sudo privileges, and that way they can run any root command using sudo. And once we set up this user, we're going to log in as this user, and then we'll stop using the root user altogether. So I'm just going to paste that in there, and then the user's name, user 21. All right, now the user is sudo. Now the next process, let's try and log in as this user so that we can try and run the sudo commands just to see if they really have the sudo privileges as we need. Here under putty, so here I can set up a new session, and I'll just say new session, and Cyberp, I can double click on it. Okay, now log in as the new user. So log in as the new user you've just set up, and we're going to log in as user 21. There we go. We're logged in as the new user now, and now this user has the root privileges. So we can try and run the sudo command. Clear the screen, and then we try sudo apt update just to see if we can run the sudo commands, and then after that we'll stop using the root user. So the first time you run sudo, you're going to get asked for the user's password. Okay, so you see I can run sudo command, and I do have certain things that can be upgraded. So let me just run sudo apt upgrade to upgrade all this. Yes, enter. All right, there we go. Our Linux has been updated. So now that we know that we can use sudo, let me just go ahead and close the other root window, the other root window where I'm logged in as root. So we don't need to use root anymore. From now on, we'll be using the new user to set up the server. Okay, so let's just confirm after the update if our Linux version is still 20.04, because we don't want to move from that. Okay, so there we go. We're still using 20.04, and that's what we want. So with the updates, it just updated the various upgrades. Okay, so now the next step. Let's see the next step. I think the next step is setting up the firewall, and that we're going to skip. So we're going to skip the firewall part, but you can read on this if you're not going to install Cyberpanel, or you're not going to install any kind of control panel. Just read this so that you can see how you can use UFW and complicated firewall to add some rules into your firewall that will help protect your server. So the next process is setting up the SSH key. Okay, so this is also important because after this, you're going to disable password authentication, and we're also going to disable the root user login. So the only person that will be able to log into the server will be the sudo user we created, and they're going to be able to log in using SSH, using an SSH key pair. So we're going to use putty. I'm on Windows, and I'm going to set up this using Windows. But if you're on Mac or Linux, I do have a very detailed tutorial here, and you can follow this to set up your SSH key. You can also watch the video to see how I did it. So all of that will be there. If you're on Mac or Linux, that is for you. If you're on Windows, let's go ahead and let us open up putty-gen, and we're going to generate the SSH keys, and then we're going to add them to our server. So the first step should be to generate the key and add them to the server, but I'm going to run these commands first of all so that I can just forget about them and go ahead and just generate the key later. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this directory, and on Linux this is a directory where the SSH keys are stored. So we're going to create that directory, and then inside of that directory we're going to have this file, and this file has the list of all our public. We'll have the list of all our public keys. So if you're going to add any public key onto your server, you're going to need to add them onto a file called the authorized keys inside of this folder. So let's create this too. Right now we can make this directory, copy, ensure that when you're setting up the SSH key, you're logged in as the user that you created. All right, so the directory has been made. The next step is let's create this file. So right now the file doesn't exist, but we're going to create it. So inside of this file, okay, you can see there, inside of this file, we are supposed to add our public keys. So right now, if I do Control X, the file will not get saved. So I'm just going to enter Y. I'm just going to enter a letter, and I'm going to enter X. And the only reason I'm entering X, okay, is so that I can be able to save the file. That's the only reason. Once I generate my SSH key, I'm going to delete that X, and I'm going to add my public key there in one line. So I'm only adding that to enable me save the file. So I'll do Control X to exit out of Nano, and then Y to accept the changes, and then enter. So Control X and then Y and then enter. All right, so the next step is for me to generate my keys. Now let's just continue with the commands. I want to finish up with these commands before we generate the keys. So the next process is for me to change the permissions for that, and this is just for security reason. We need to reduce this to root level access. So let's change the permissions for that folder into 700. And then we also need to change the permission for this to root level. So this will only be accessible via anyone with root permissions. So if somebody tries to access this and they don't have the root permissions, they will not be able to. And this is a Linux feature with SSH, whereby if the permissions are too open, you won't be able to log in using that public key. And then since we've changed this to root level permission, we need to give access to this file to this user that we created. Okay, so the group, we're going to give it the group of the user we created, and then the username. So any place where there's Joe, just replace that with the username that you set up. This is just to change ownership of this file to this user, okay, so that at least they can use it to log in. If you don't do this, you won't be able to log in with this key. You'll get access denied. So let me just come in here, and I'm going to paste that in, and I want to change all these instances with user 21. So the group of user 21 and the user of user 21, and then the home directory will be for user 21. So this is going to give permissions to the user we set up. So I'm just going to paste that in there, press enter, and now our SSH keys are ready. Our SSH files that we need are ready. The next step is for me to generate the key and then add it here. So we're going to add it into this authorized keys once we generate it. So to generate it, let's just open up putty-gen. So for this, we're going to use putty-gen, and to generate the file, just click there, generate, and you can choose the type of key you want to generate here on putty-gen. You can see by default we're generating 2048. I don't know if 4096 is supported on Ubuntu, but you can try and generate a 4096 key as well. So for me, I'm just going to go with the default of 2048, but you can also generate 4096, okay? and you can also generate 1024 if you want to. So I'm going to use the default of RSA, and then I'm going to generate, and I can just move my cursor just to generate the file appropriately. And now it's generated. Now the next step is for me to take this public key, and I need to add this onto my server in the file that we've just set up. So then the other thing is, make sure you add a key phrase for your key, because if you don't add a key phrase here for your private key, you can log in automatically, and that's not what you want. You want a situation whereby even if someone else gets access to this key, they won't be able to log in if they don't know the key phrase. So make sure you add one key phrase there. For me, I'm going to save my private key without the key phrase. Okay, so save the private key, and you're even being told to create a passphrase for this. So I'm going to generate a key, and I can just use that same name for this, and I will save the file. So this is our private key.ppk private key, and that's the one we're going to use to log in. So yes, I will overwrite that. Now this is the key that I need to add into my public server. So if there is a situation whereby you need to upload a key, and you need to upload a key, a public key, like when we were setting up Vultr, you can just save a public key, and that's the one that you can upload. But for us, we need to copy this, and this is the one we're going to add onto our server. So just click on the first line there. Make sure you select everything. Click on the first line, and then click on the last line, and then shift press to copy everything, and then copy. And once I do this, I can come back to my server, and I need to add it to this file. So let me just press the up arrow to get to that command where we can change, where we can open that file. So there we go, sudo nano, and we're going to open it using nano. So you can see the X that we added there. Let's just delete that X. So all your public keys will be inside here, and you can add them in one single line. Like, ensure everything is in a single line, or you're not going to be logged in. You won't be able to log in. So I will paste in that, and make sure everything is in a single line. Okay, you just need to copy it from where I showed you, and it will be in a single line like that. Then I'm going to do Control X, and then Y to accept, and then enter. There we go. Now our SSH keys have been set up. Now the next process is for me to try and log in using those SSH keys. It's just that easy. You come in here. Let's do a new session, and I'll open up that, apply, and then now I want to log in as the user that we created the SSH key for. So user 21, and then enter. Okay. Oh yeah, I have made a mistake here. What I need to do is I need to tell putty that I actually want to log in via the key. So to do that, all you have to do is you come here under settings. So for this is the one. What I need to do, let me close this, right? And let's open a new putty instance. Put that down there. I may need it, you never know. And then I will come here, and I will load this. And also, once I load it, what I need to do is I need to come back here under SSH. Let me just open up that, and then here under authorization, auth, I need to give it the link to the key. So I will browse to the key, and the moment I do this, putty is going to notice that I want to log in using a key. So I don't want to do this every single time. So I'm going to come back here under sessions, and since I already have this loaded, I'm going to save it. Okay, and while I'm here, I might as well try to change this again. I don't know why the changes are not persistent. Come back into sessions, try to save, open. Okay, let's try to log in. Let's try to log in with the user we just set up. That is user 21, the new sudo user. User 21. Enter. Okay, you see, the moment you add the public key link, it will automatically log you in with the key. So this is why I was saying that you need to set up a passphrase for your key. So if you do set up a passphrase for the key, what's going to happen is that every time you try to log in, it's going to ask you for the passphrase, and that's very important. That's very important for your security, because someone may get access to your computer and they may steal your private key. And the moment they have that key, they can log into your server. But if they do have the key, but they don't have your passphrase, they won't be able to access your server. Okay, so that's something that you need to do. Make sure it's a strong passphrase as well, so that you don't have to, so that you can make your server more secure. You can see it automatically logged me in. So now that I can log in with my SSH key, the next step, I'm just going to close this, because now we can log in via SSH key. The next step is, let us disable root login, the root user from logging in, and we're also going to disable password authentication. You saw that when I did not enter the link to my key, I was given an option to log in via the password. I definitely don't want that. I only want to be able to log in using my key that I've generated. Okay, and you've set up, and you've seen how to set that up. So we're going to disable root login, and we're going to disable password authentication. So I can do this in one line. I can just open this file, the SSH configuration file, and then I'm going to disable this, and I'm also going to disable root login in that file. That is a SSH configuration file. So I'll just open the file, and you need to add this password for the user, the sudo user. All right, so this is the SSH configuration file, and there are lots of things you can change in here. Actually, there are lots of security things that you can do inside here. Like, for instance, you can change the port. You can change your SSH port, and once you change the SSH port, make sure that you go to your firewall and you add the new port, because if you don't add the new port, you're going to get blocked from accessing your SSH, your server, and you definitely want to be able to access your server. So you cannot scroll on this file. You're going to need to use the down arrow keys, or you can use this, which are here. Okay, you can do Control V to go down, Control W to search. Just this, you can look at all of them, which are all the various help texts which are here. Let's just scroll down, and as I said, you can disable this and change the port number, and then go to your firewall and change and add the port to allow that port. And then once you do that, your SSH port will be changed just like that, and that's a security feature that you should probably consider as well. So here you can search for items. Okay, so like permit root login, we need to change permit root login to no, so that the root user cannot log in. And then you can also reduce the maximum authentication tries. If somebody tries to log in more than 3 times, maybe you want to block that session. And max sessions as well. How many people do you want to be logged into the server concurrently? So where is the other one? The other one is called password authentication. I think I've seen it here. So password authentication as well, we need to disable this. So password authentication, change it to no. Password authentication, change it to no. So we've changed password authentication to no, and we've also changed permit root login to no. So I'll do Control X, Y, and then exit Nano. All right, so the next process is for us to restart SSH. And once we restart SSH, we're going to try to log in using the root user, and we're going to try to log in without a key just to see what happens. So let's just restart SSH first. Sudo service SSH restart. Enter. All right, so let's try to log in and see if the root user can log in. New session. Let's load, copy the IP, and then I will come into, where is it? I'll come back here and paste in my IP, and then I will open. Let me just open it, and let's try to log in as root first of all. Root. And you can see no supported authentication methods available. Server sent public key. So that's one. And then now let's try to log in again. Let's open up putty. Let's paste in the IP address again. And then we're going to open this, and we're going to see if user 21 can log in. So you see no supported authentication methods available. So that's something that is good. We don't want. And you know what? Let's just test if the root user can even log in with the SSH key. So we're going to come in here, putty again. So it's just important to test this. It's good for security. And then we'll come back into SSH and give it the link to the authorization key just to see if the root user can even log in with this key. We're going to open, and let's open. And log in as root. And you can see no supported authentication methods available. So you see, now the root user cannot log in. And if somebody has your root password, they probably won't be able to log into your server. So the next step and the final step in this server setup will be setting up a swap file on Ubuntu. So there's an important message here on my site. For some reason, my server, my WordPress is stripping out this double hyphen. This is a double hyphen. So just type it as you see it here. And we're going to set up a swap file. A swap file is just a memory file that can be used when your physical RAM memory runs out. So if the memory becomes small, becomes depleted, some items will be moved to your swap file. So that's why if you're on a VPS, it's very important for you to have a swap file. Otherwise, your server is going to crash when the memory runs low. As soon as the memory runs out, it needs a place where it can keep some of the dormant items that it's currently storing in the memory. So the first time here, let's just check if there's a swap file that is created by default. So you can create more even if you already have one. So we're just going to do sudo swap on show to check if I'll just copy this, but just note that this is there's supposed to be 2 hyphens without any space. I'm going to edit that. Let us just do sudo swap on show dash enter. Okay, that's because I have added a space here. There shouldn't be a space. It's just like that. All right, so you see that there's no result. If I try to run it again, there's no result. That means that we don't have a swap file on our server, and you need to create one. Especially if your RAM is less than 2 GB, you should definitely create one. So the first step, let's create a file, and we're going to call that file my swap file, and then that file we're going to allocate 2 GB to it. You can allocate more if you want to, but I'm just going to allocate 2. So if you want to allocate more, it's okay. You can allocate more. So I'm going to come in here and let's create that file. You can give it a different name if you want to. You can even store it in a different location if you want to. Okay, that's entirely possible. So this means that it's going to be created in the root directory and it will be called my swap file. So sudo allocate 2 GB and we'll enter, and that file has been created. If you do ls-la, you're going to see that file there. But we don't need to do all that. I know the file is there. Then we're going to change the permission to the root level permissions. So if you do change the name of the file, make sure you change the commands appropriately. And I'm going to do that. Now the next step is we need to activate this file, and we also need to activate it and turn it into a swap file. So if I come back here, I can do all of that in one line. This is going to make it a swap file. This tells the system that this is now a swap file, and this is going to activate it. Swap on just turns the file on, it activates it, and then we'll just paste in that here. So you'll see this is just a way for you to join 2 Linux commands. You can chain multiple commands using this, or you can use a semicolon. Either way, you can run multiple commands in one line, and this is going to do 2 things at once. So when I press enter, you can see our swap file has now been created and it's been activated. So at this point, if I run sudo swap on show, it's going to tell us that we do have a swap file indeed. So right now it's telling us that we have a swap file of 2 GB. Unfortunately, if we restart the system, it's not going to notice that swap file. So what you need to do is we need to add it to the FST tab, EFS tab, and this will let the system know every time it restarts that there is a swap file that you need to register under your memory locations as well. So I'm going to copy that and I'm just going to come back here and I will paste that in there, and we need to add the location of that file with various default settings. So you can just copy that from here. So if you change the location and the name of the file, make sure you edit them appropriately. So we're going to do this, we're going to copy that, and we're going to just set up the file with default swap settings. So just scroll all the way to the end, right click, and it's going to paste in that. And as soon as we do this, and then we do Control X, Y, and exit, Control X, Y, exit, our swap file is now available for us. And even if we restart the system, the swap file will still be available and it will be recognized as a memory location as well. So just in case in future you realize that the swap file that you created is not enough, you can create another swap file. So you can have multiple swap files, but it's just better to have real physical memory other than creating swap files. But if your VPS has low memory like this, definitely create a swap file, definitely. All right, so that's pretty much it for this part about setting up the server. You can see it's not really a long process. You can do it fast. For me, it's just slow because I had to talk and do it at the same time. So let's clear. And you know what, we can restart the server and log in again. And to restart my server, I can just restart it on this end. After doing all that, let me just restart my server on Vultr. And once the server is restarted, I can log in again. And once I log in, we're going to install Cyberpanel. So before we start installing, so you can see network error. That's because the server has been restarted. So if I come here on Google, and I can just search for install Cyberpanel, and I can just search for install Cyberpanel. To install Cyberpanel, just click on that link from cyberpanel.net. And you can see this is also my video, which is here. I did this on CentOS 8. You can watch that if you want to. And you can just come in here and what you need to do, you can see the supported operating systems. I hope they start supporting Debian 10 soon, because Debian is a much more reliable operating system than Ubuntu. If you don't want to deal with updates all the time, then Debian is definitely the one to go with. So installing Cyberpanel. Now, they also tell you that Cyberpanel has two versions. There is the free version and the enterprise version. The enterprise version uses Lightspeed Enterprise. The free version uses Open Lightspeed. Okay, and we're going to install the free version, and to install both of them is just the same. Okay, you'll choose which one to install once you start installing it. So I will copy this, right? I will copy this. If I come back, let's log into the server first. So I can just restart the session, and I will log in as user 21. There we go. Now, I need to, since I'm using, to install Cyberpanel, you need root privileges, like extreme root privileges, okay? So what I'm going to do is, since I'm on user 21, I need to switch to the root user, and you can do that simply by doing sudo su dash, and that's going to switch you to the root user. Su dash, okay? I don't need to add the root user. It will automatically assume that we want to switch to the root user. And then sudo password for user 21. Okay, now you can see there, it's telling us that we're the root user. And now I can run. So for installing Cyberpanel, I don't have to use sudo, because right now the system assumes that I'm the root user. So I'm just going to paste in that command in there, sh-wget, and then enter. And it's going to ask me various questions. So this is an interactive process. So I'm going to have to answer various questions here and there, and then we let it install. So the first step, of course, you need to choose. Okay, yes, I want to install Cyberpanel. 1. And then, do you want to install the free Cyberpanel or the enterprise? We want to install the free one, which is with Open Lightspeed. So I will enter 1 and enter. If you want to try the Lightspeed Enterprise, you can do that by entering 2. But I'm going to do 1, enter. Now install the full service for Cyberpanel. This will include everything we need. And then enter. Full installation, select, do you want? Now for this, I'll just press enter so that it can give me the default. So just press enter to continue the latest version. Of course, we want the latest version. Then choose to use default admin password. So for this, you can set or random. Let me just randomize the password. I'll press R. So I don't know why this has happened, but the system has aborted my connection. So this is something that I noticed with Ubuntu. I've never had this problem with CentOS and Debian. So I don't know. If you have a choice between using Debian and Ubuntu, always use Debian. So I will restart the session again. login as user 21. Clear the screen. Let us switch to the root user again. Sudo su dash. I need to paste in the command again. So I hope it's going to complete successfully. I don't want to go through that again. So if there is any issue, it will let you know. Please enter 1. Yeah. Install Cyberpanel. 1. Install the free version. I'll do the full install here. I'll just press enter for the default. Enter for the default. And then the default password is 12345667. Yeah, let me do default anyway. Enter. Do you wish to install memcached? I'll do yes. And then enter. Redis, no. If I need Redis, I can install it later. Would you like to set up Watchdog for this? Yeah, I'll just set up yes. It doesn't matter. So let the installation complete. At this point, you don't have to do anything. Just wait for it to complete, and then it's going to give you your details and you can log into your server. And the good thing that I did earlier was I set up my DNS. I did set up my DNS on Cloudflare. At least I did set up my DNS. Let me see that. Did I set it up? I came here and I added this. Now the mistake that I made is I did not add sample. So I need to add sample too. What is our hostname? Our hostname on this server. If I come under settings, it should tell me hostname there. So there's my hostname. So I did not set up one for this. So let's do that right now. And I'm just going to copy the IP address from there. Copy. And I can set up an A record. So I will add record. And I want to add an A record. And the name is sample. Sample dot. And then the IP address. Paste in the IP address. And for this, I don't know the Cyberpanel. Is that port supported? I don't think the Cyberpanel support is supported on Cloudflare. So I'm going to disable that. And I will save. So this record, that's because we've disabled that. But I'm only doing this for DNS records. I don't care about anything else. And I also need to add another A record. And for this, let's add www.sample. So I need to add this IP address. Paste that in there. And I will also disable that. Let's look at supported Cloudflare ports. So if you look at this, I always like to look at the documentation from the actual website. Okay, so these are the supported ports. By default, Cloudflare will proxy this. So let's see if Cloudflare will support the port from Cyberpanel. Is it supported? Let's just wait. Let's wait for the installation to finish up. As soon as it finishes up, it's going to give us the link location where we can log into the server. So the installation is complete after waiting for a while. Okay, so you can see here that port 25 is blocked. Now this is the one responsible for allowing incoming and outgoing mail. And this is by default blocked on Vultr. You need to contact your VPS provider to allow them to send mail. So for me, on this server, I cannot send mail, but I won't be using it for anything on production. By the time you're watching this video, I will have destroyed the server. So that's just something you ought to know if you're using Vultr. And I think DigitalOcean as well blocks theirs. So just contact them and let them open the port for you if you're going to use it. So at this point, I'm just going to press enter to continue. But even before I do that, you can see that your login has been set up here. If you scroll up here, you're going to see that you can log into your server there and the admin username and the password there. Okay, so I'm going to visit this. So you can see this is port. This is what I was trying to figure out. Port 7080. Is it in the Cloudflare accessible port 7080? No, it's not. So that's why I had to uncheck the options to allow the ports through. So I'm going to open this, not this one, this one. And I will just left click to copy. And I will come back here. I will paste and go. And you can see it is not, the connection is not secure because this is a self-signed certificate. So I will just click continue. And I'm using the Edge browser. And then this, and I want to copy the password. Copy. Username by default is admin. I will paste in the password. Login. Okay, so I needed to log into Cyberpanel, and to do that, all you have to do is come back here and look at this. Where is it? If you just scroll up, you're going to see Cyberpanel uses port 8090, and then port 7080 is used by Open Lightspeed. So if you want to log into Lightspeed like I did, that's what you do. But if you want to log into Cyberpanel, you just copy this, and then you log in using the admin username and the password there. Okay,